Hello and welcome. I'm Shane Melach from imimpact.com, and in this video I will give you a quick tour of 6 different WordPress plugins that are designed to let you gather feedback and suggestions from your visitors and users in various ways. The first one in line is called smartFeedback, and this is what it looks like on the front end. This is a demo blog I have, and you simply install this plugin and it will make this little tab here appear on the side. As you can see, it scrolls with the screen, and when the user clicks on it, it opens a modal box. But as you can see here, one of the problems I noticed with this plugin is that the box doesn't seem to scroll with me. This seems to be a bug as far as I can tell. It might be, a conflict with the newest WordPress version or something. Certainly no conflict with other plugins, because on this demo blog I don't have anything else. But at any rate, here the user can give their feedback. So let me just enter some junk data here, and there's a selection. The standard selection is report a bug, question, or suggestions, and you can customize these. So I'm going to make a suggestion, and this would be the message, and then I hit send, and this sends the feedback, and that's it. Okay, so that's how the front end of this thing works, and the tab will just display on every page of your site. Alright, now the back end of all this looks like this. It creates this new menu item when you activate the plugin, and you have your entries at the top here, where you can see, actually I have to reload this to see the latest one, obviously. So you can see all of the entries that have been made, you can see who made them and so on, and there's this read reply button which opens a window from which you can answer directly. So you can send an email from your WordPress installation directly to answer the feedback suggestions. And then there are several options with which you can customize the plugin. So for example, you can enter your email address if you want to be notified of new feedback given. You can also change the categories if you want to, so you can add a category of your own. Let's just call this custom equals custom category, and let me just save that and let's see if that works. If I go here and reload, we should see a new category when we submit some feedback, and here it is, custom category. So you can absolutely customize what you want these possible categories to be, but you have to have categories. As far as I know, you can't get rid of this field. Alright, then we have more options. You can choose things like the fade opacity, so how dark the background gets basically. You can choose the pattern in the background when it fades, fade out time, fade in time in milliseconds and whatnot. Strangely enough, what you can't customize much more basic things, like for example the color or position of the tab, or the color of this of the whole box here. So it seems a bit strange to me that you can tweak things like the fade in and fade out times, but not much more basic things, because depending on your theme, having a gray tab on the left side might really not be what you're looking for, might really not suit your theme at all. So I'm surprised that there's no easy option to change the color or move the position of the tab, for example. So that seems a bit strange to me, and also the fact that this thing doesn't scroll down with me, and even worse, if I scroll down and then click on it, it seems like nothing happens. But actually I'm sure this is a bug, and it's probably, I wouldn't be surprised if this were solved maybe in the next update of the plugin. And I think that concludes our quick tour of the smartFeedback plugin. The next one in line is, well, I'm going to call it 90 Feedback plugin. Here it says 90 WordPress Feedback plugin, and in the marketplace where you can get it, it's called TotalFeedback plugin. So I think they're not quite sure what it's called themselves, but let's have a look at it. Here's what it looks like on our demo blog. Again, we have this tab, this almost inconspicuous tab on the left side, and I can click on that to open again a modal window. And I type in an email address and leave some feedback, and then there's this nice little feature where you can indicate your mood. So maybe I'm unhappy, and it even gives you suggestions for how you're feeling, and you can submit this feedback. So that's what it looks like from the front end for your users. Very simple feedback form with this little bonus with the mood indicator. The back end of this, here we have some settings. You can activate or deactivate the feedback button. You can have notifications sent to your WordPress user email address when new feedback is given. and you can activate or deactivate the moods field that I showed you. You can also customize the text of the feedback tab, and you can customize the text that pops up in the box here. So this text right here is customizable, and that's about it for the settings. And then you have view, where you can see the feedback that's been given, and here all of the information is right inside one single view. So you see who sent it, you see the entire comment they sent, when they sent it, their mood, and over here there's also some information that could be useful for debugging when someone sends a bug report. So this feedback plugin from 90 is quite similar to the last one we looked at. Again, you can't customize the look of this tab over here. I mean, you can obviously, I'm sure you can go in and customize the CSS inside the code, but there's no easy option for example, changing the color of this, which with this gray unobtrusive tab, I don't know if that's the best option that anyone would want. So again, it seems kind of strange to me that you can't customize something as basic as that. But apart from that, it's a pretty nice and functional little plugin. Our next candidate is the Creative Feedback Form. And to show you a demo of this, let me go to the developers demo page. Here we can see it's a tab that sticks to the top of the screen, which is something you can customize. When you click on this, you get this window where you can leave feedback in different categories. So you can choose the category of the feedback you want to leave. You can see other feedback that's been given, and you can vote on these. So you can either like or dislike the entries. And in addition to that, you can click on the Show Me More here to see all of the entries that have been made and vote on all of them. And only in this view, you don't only see the title, you also see the actual text. Now this is mostly gibberish because people are using this demo page to try out the tool, obviously. But here you can basically browse all of the community feedback. And then you can also get back to the form and then enter your own feedback, as you can imagine. Plus you can choose whether or not the feedback should be published for everyone to see. Now I wanted to show you this here because there are a lot of entries on this demo page, but you can also, let's have a look at it here. In this case, the tab is on the right, and it's just this little smiley face, and it's also a different color theme, and this one's quite terrible actually in my opinion. So let's go and change that and look at the back end of this. So here we have the settings. We can change the color, so let's go with blue for example, and there's also two types for each of these themes, so let's go with blue and light. You can change the label position, and here's the thing, if I move this to the bottom or the top, then it will be, let me save this here. If I move it to the bottom of or the top, it will be a smiley with the text feedback. And if it's on either left or right side, it's going to be just the smiley, which I think isn't ideal. Because if you just have this little tab with a smiley on one side, it's not quite clear what that's about. Whereas if you have this feedback tab, it's pretty clear what it's about. Now another thing worth mentioning here is that if you leave feedback, you give it a title, you give it a description, and then you submit that, and there's a CAPTCHA. So you have to enter this CAPTCHA code before the feedback is submitted, which is, oh, I messed it up, never mind, which is an anti-spam measure. I guess that makes sense. You don't want to get spam entries in your form here, but that's just something to be aware of because potentially it can annoy your users. Another thing that I think is wrong here is that if you click in the empty space next to the modal box, it doesn't close, which usually modal boxes close, you know, when you click outside of them. Here you have to hit this little thing, and as you can see here, it's way too small. Like the close button is way too small. That's also just a little annoyance that I think could have easily been avoided. All right, let's look at the rest of the options here as well. We saw the customization options. There's also email notifications, and what I think is very good, there is a translation option. So all of the text elements you see here can be translated. And this is quite important because the English translation isn't great. The English translation isn't great. If we look at this, I changed it, for example, to suggestions, feedback, bug report, and praise. The original is ideas, remarks, problems, and likes, which just doesn't seem quite right, does it? But anyway, you can easily change that, plus you can translate it into any language you want. So that's pretty cool. Then we have the messages themselves that you can see here. It simply lists all of the messages. And note, this is very important, you have to activate email notifications if you want to reply. Okay, because you can't, there's no way to reply to these comments from here, and there's also no way to know who made them, because there's no email address along with these comments. So you have to have email notifications, otherwise it's a one-way street of communication. That, I think, is a bit of a mistake. Plus, I'm not a huge fan of the design, I have to say. No matter which theme you select, they're all slightly ugly. But then again, you know, design is just a question of taste, so that's not a big issue as far as I'm concerned. Next up, we've got Usernoise and Usernoise Pro, and these are actually two kind of different, or two modules of one plugin. So let me show you, first of all, let's go into the plugins section here. And here's the thing, Usernoise is a free plugin. And let me quickly activate that. And so you can see what the free version does versus what the Pro version does. Okay, so here we have Usernoise. There are some settings you can change. For example, let me reload this page here. You can change what this button looks like, and I change this to a green color, for example. You can also change the text on the tab, rather, not the button. And let me see, you can also change the position, left, right, top, or bottom. Okay, so this is, and again, this is the free version of Usernoise. You get this little feedback tab. It opens this window with ideas, problems, questions, and praise. You enter your feedback and you submit that. What's a bit weird here is that the text is first, and then it says short summary here, but this is really the title, isn't it? This seems a bit weird. In every other form, you usually have the title first and then the main text. But never mind, that's just a small thing. But anyway, that's the Usernoise free plugin. So you can get this completely for free. Let's go into the back end as well and take a look at the actual comments that come in. They look like this. So you see which category someone selected, and you see the actual input that was given. You can also take a closer look at each of these feedback items, and here you can see already that there's some features that are pro only. So let's quickly head over to the developers site to show you a Usernoise Pro in action with some comments inside it already. So here we have the same window for submitting feedback, and next to it you can see previous feedback given by people, and you can also vote on those. So you can click on this little heart symbol to give them votes, which I think is cool, but it isn't so great because that isn't evident right away. It isn't evident that you have votes to give and that you give them by clicking on this little heart symbol. But what you can also do, and you can see these in different categories, it will load the previous suggestions in different categories, and you can click on load more to see more items, and you can click on an item to see it in detail with the entire description, plus you can leave your own comments. So it's like a mini forum. Okay, you can actually have discussions going where people can vote on these different ideas and can discuss these ideas and so on. But of course, if someone doesn't want to use all of these features, they can still just use it as a completely normal feedback form. Just leave the feedback, submit that, and that's it. So to get this bit here, that's the upgrade from the free version of Usernoise. So if we go back here, we go to the plugins again, and we're going to activate Usernoise Pro, and this will give us a new set of options. So here again we have this. Let's look at one of these feedback items, which now comes with more information. You can edit the items in Usernoise Pro. You can also approve them or unapprove them, so that which will decide whether or not they show up in this public discussion for everyone to see. And there are some, there's this thing here, an HTML dump, which in this case is empty. It tries to give you information about the URL and browser used. This might not be working because I'm logged in as the admin, so it would be different if an actual user left the feedback. Back to the settings, here we can go into this new tab So first of all, we've looked at the general settings briefly. You can customize the text on the form. You can customize which options are shown or not shown. So for example, the categories, you can deactivate those. You can set the notification email, and then there's some pro options which all concern this the discussion settings basically. So if we reload this, we now have a Usernoise Pro here, including this discussion bit. Personally, I think this is very cool, this voting and discussion feature. What would make it even better is if you could display this in its own page. If you could have all of these discussions like on a public page for everyone to see. But as far as I could tell, the only place where you get it is in this modal box, where everything is kind of a little bit cramped and it's kind of hidden away. So yeah, that's just something I would have liked to see, but it's definitely a cool way of gathering feedback. And it can also be, if you're using this kind of as a support thing, it can also be something that reduces the amount of feedback you get or the amount of problems that are reported, because if someone clicks on this tab and they already see their problem listed, they might go and look at the comments in there instead of submitting a new question. Alright, so that's Usernoise and Usernoise Pro. The next plugin we're going to look at is called Avia Feedback Box. And once again, let's go to the developers demo site here. Here you can see the feedback box. And so here's how it works. You have all of these suggestions here, and every user in this case gets 10 votes. And you can vote several times on one entry, or you can vote on different entries. You can see the entire entry, the title and the entire entry is displayed here. Plus there are comments, and you can also leave your own comments. The comments are, however, not threaded. But there are these comments here. You can browse, you can look at the most popular entries or the newest entries. You can look at entries that have been marked as being in progress and entries that have been marked as being completed. And you can add your own entry by adding your name, email, and so on, and your message, right? So this is how Avia works, and here's the same thing on the demo blog. In this case, we don't have a tab or anything like that, but we have a page. We create a page and put this feedback form on this page. And so here people can create their entries and leave feedback and so on. Now with the votes, one thing you can see here, I have fewer votes here. The votes are tracked by IP address and are refreshed once a month. So after 30 days, basically, if I come back, I have the full amount of votes again. And if we look at the back end here, if we look here in the Avia Feedback Box settings, there are a few settings you can change. You can change the skin. So let's have a quick look at those. There's a dark skin, which is awfully dark, I might add. If we go here, I mean, it seems a bit exaggerated to me actually. Here, if I add an entry, we get these really dark fields here. So let's leave a quick entry. And then when I submit the entry, this is what it looks like. Again, with the dark skin, it seems a bit too dark to me. There's also a structure only, which will basically just take the existing CSS from your theme and add no graphical elements of its own. And obviously you can also write your own CSS for this if you want to. You can select the page on which you want to display this feedback box, and by the way, you can, if you select a page, any content you have on the page will appear first and then followed by the feedback box. Or you can insert the feedback box via short code. So you can have content before and after it if you so choose. There's an option to allow submission of entries only for logged in users. You can select how many votes each member gets every month, and you can select whether you want to moderate the entries before they are published or not. You can also select how many entries are shown per page, and you can select this bit of text that is shown when someone hovers over the info tab here. Then there's this separate item for the actual feedback that you get, and you can look at these entries here much like you look at posts. and you can see who made them, and you can add a status. So let's do that. If I can select the status, no, actually I can close it so that you can no longer vote or comment on it. And I can add a message. So for example, I can say completed, and a message saying we've now added this feature, and then update it. And here's what this would look like on the front end. Here next to this message now there's this little symbol with this box that pops up that says we've now added this feature. So that is the Avia Feedback, or Avia Feedback, I'm not sure, box, and I think it's quite interesting. It's almost like a hybrid between a feedback form and a forum of some sort. It's quite interesting. But the difference to all of the others is that, as I said, there's no like global feedback tab or anything like that that shows up everywhere on your site. All right, our final candidate is called TotalFeedback, and it's again quite a different concept from what we've seen so far. In this case, it's this little box here that pops up in the bottom right corner of the page. So it pops up and it has like a mini survey in it where there's a question and a selection, a choice of answers, including the possibility of adding a custom answer. So custom answer, and I'm going to send that. This is what it looks like, and that's it. The other thing is that once this has appeared, if I reload the page now, once someone has given feedback, it won't appear again. So this is not so much a plugin for gathering things like, you know, almost support requests and general questions and so on. This is more of an active, you ask a specific question and the users give an answer, and that's it. Here's what the back end of this looks like. You can see the responses, or how many responses you've gotten, how many views you've gotten, and so on. And you can see this for individual polls, because you can actually create many different polls and have them running on different pages of your site. So when you create a poll, you create your question, and then you select what kind of an answer it should be. So multiple choice with single answers, multiple answers, or simply a free text answer. You can add and remove as many questions as you want, and for each question you can either offer people to, when they select this question, to be able to give a short explanation, just one line, or a long explanation, which is the text field I showed you before. Then you get to choose where it's displayed, so you can display a poll site-wide, or on a specific post, on a specific page, or in a specific category, so in all posts of a specific category. Then, and this I think is very important, you can choose how or when this poll should appear. So for example, you can say it should appear if someone's been looking at the page for 30 seconds, or it should appear once the user scrolls down almost to the bottom of a page. You can also edit an existing poll, so let's do that. And for example, let's set this to appear when the cursor leaves the window, the mouse cursor leaves the window. And let's have a look at that in a second. But before we do that, you can also look at the responses that you've gotten for each of the polls you've created. So click on View. And here you get a nice breakdown of how many people selected which answer. And if you have text responses, you can go and have a look at those as well. So here you see the custom answers, and because this is a different type of plugin, again, there's no email address. You can't answer these people because all they do is give you the feedback. They don't have to answer an email address or anything like that. Plus there's a breakdown of which pages the polls were seen on and answered on, and so on. So the stats are quite deep here, and that's quite good. And keep in mind, if you have multiple polls running, you can get these stats, these very detailed stats for each and every single one of them. And while we're here, another thing that you might have noticed is this is a free trial that I'm doing right now. There's a free 2-week trial of TotalFeedback before you have to pay anything for it. So with that in mind, let's load this page again, and this time with a new poll, which appears, as you saw, as soon as I basically leave the window with my mouse cursor. This pops up, which I think is a great attention grabber, especially on something like a sales page where you might not want to distract a visitor. You don't want to distract them from making a purchase, but if they don't make a purchase and they move their mouse away and want to close the tab, this thing pops up, and you might be able to ask them something like, at this point, what would you need to be convinced to buy this, or is there any feature that you were looking for that's missing, or something like that, which can make this plugin very, very useful. Alright, so that's the overview of TotalFeedback. And with that said, the conclusion, for my full conclusion of all this, check out the written post with this review inside. As a quick conclusion, I really like the concept of the Avia Feedback Box, where you have like a community discussion going on and people can vote and so on, which is similar to what's going on in the Usernoise Pro with this section over here. But I think because it's on its own page, it's it's kind of more accessible. It's not hidden away like that. I think the Avia Feedback Box is probably the better choice if that's what you're looking for. If all you want is a simple feedback widget, I think that Usernoise, the free version of Usernoise, is probably the way to go. And if you want more later, you can always upgrade to Usernoise Pro or the Avia Feedback Box. And then of course there's TotalFeedback, which is quite a different system, which is more of a surveying system. And this, I think, especially for sites where you are selling something, where you can kind of ask questions, ask your prospects questions, can be extremely valuable. Alright, and that's it for my WordPress feedback plugins roundup review. Make sure to check out imimpact.com for the full review.